Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Friday technical live stream here at the Wized channel. And today we are doing the fifth part and last part of Supabase education. Don't worry, this is not the last video we're doing about Supabase. We're just finalizing this five-part series of just walking through everything that you can do both in Supabase and using Wized for your web applications. So today, as mentioned, we are doing the fifth part, and we are talking about a bunch of things, exciting things. First of all, we need to finalize some of the things that were planned for four, but that we didn't have enough time to do it. So today, we are going to do that first. There's still things to talk about related to integrating Supabase authentication into Supabase Edge functions, so you can run an Edge function and you can identify who is calling that function. Is it a user? Do you want to do anything special about that user coming in? And then we're going to talk about routing in the case that you have a lot of different endpoints that you want to implement. You don't need to be creating different functions for each endpoint. You can create one single function and just do routing in it. We'll talk about that. Then I don't know if Dimitris is going to come here today, but in previous live streams, he was very interested in Cron Jobs. And I actually realized that there is support for Cron Jobs in Supabase. So we're going to look into that as well. It's very simple. It's just an integration that allows us to define. Nice. Look at that. Hey, yeah, Dimitris, you're here. So we can talk about how to define a cron job in Supabase because it's actually possible. Okay. And then today, the rest of the live stream, it's about Supabase storage. That's the last missing piece about everything that we can do in Supabase. You can actually do more things, but the basic building blocks, we've been seeing all of them. We've been seeing databases, authentication, edge functions, and now storage. So we're going to see how to set up storage, how to create a bucket, how to create folders, how to upload files, how to download the files, how to do it from Wiz. So how to get a file from the user and send it over to Supabase. We're going to see how to get URLs in case that you wanted, for example, to display an image or to download a PDF file. We're going to see all this. All right. So there's a lot of things that we need to talk about today, which means that I am going to start right away. If anybody else is coming here and wants to say hi, drop a comment and I will eventually read it. Nice. So edge functions. Let's remember 1 second that to create edge functions, we cannot do it directly on Supabase's dashboard. We need to do it in our own local development. That's what we did in part 4. So if you are interested in doing that, go ahead and watch the previous part. I think that you can learn a lot from it. So we've got our local environment where we created a very basic function that's called hello world, like that. And I need to spin up everything again because I closed it. So first of all, let's run pm supabase functions list just to see if this is deployed correctly. Let's select the project. And we're going to see that, yes, we've got our function. It's called hello world. The last time that it was deployed was exactly 1 week ago during that live stream. And it's currently active. And we deployed it a total of 14 times. Whoa, that's a lot. So in that function, I remember that all we were doing was getting some cars from our database and then serving that to the user. But there's a small problem that we run into, and today we're going to tackle it. First of all, let's run that function. So let's look into this. I think that it was called invoke hello world. Let's see this. Let's run it. And we're going to get a server error. And that is because I think that there was a mistake here in the syntax. Let me try to find it. Yes, it is because we have some duplicated things here. You can see error. It should not be called error. It should be called user error, like that. And here, data goes with this data, error goes with this error. Data, we called it here user data. So we just got the user's data. Nice. User error. And that happens if we cannot get the user. Nice. All right. So let's deploy this again because I want to, first of all, make this work correctly. So we're going to do pm supabase functions deploy and hello world. Now we're going to get an error now. And the reason we're going to get an error is because I don't have Docker running. So I need to spin up Docker. That's a requirement from Supabase when we're doing local development. Let's see. Okay, we've got Docker and the engine seems to be running. It has been started, which means that we can try it again. Let me close this like that. And now this should be deployed. Cool. Let's go back to Wized. Okay, so if we refresh this, let's call this, and now we should see a success. All right, so the idea here, and that's what we stopped in the previous live stream, is that in this hello world function, we actually changed, we're not saying hello world anymore. What we're trying to do is go in the database and look for the cars that we've got in here. All right. But these cars, this table has a policy, has a row level security policy, which says that only users that have been authenticated can retrieve their own cars. So if we go back to the table definition in cars, we're going to see that each car has an ID, has a created at, model ID, and a user ID, right? So this policy is saying, hey, only the user that, if you're trying to query this, you're only going to get the cars that belong to you. So in this case, I am logged in as this user here, ID 30803, like that, which I should be getting. That means that I should be getting at least these two cars. I should be getting this one and this one because these cars belong to me. So let's try to find out exactly why is that happening. We are logging in. We're trying to get the cars like that. We're passing the ANAN key. Which means that we should be sending the data. Interesting. Let's do one thing for now. Let's return the user data just to find out exactly if we are being logged in correctly. So let's just copy this. Let's put it up here. And let's do return user data, manifesting some Zoom VS Code. All right. Let's send the user data status 200 like that. Okay, let's deploy this again. Super quick. Yes. All right, so this has been deployed, which means that now when we call this function, what we should see is what we should receive is our user data. Look at that. All right, so just by initializing the, what is it? Initializing the client from Supabase and then calling these Supabase client.auth.getUser and the token that Wized is already injecting into this edge function, Supabase is smart enough to, all right, is logging in the user. Now, when we're trying to get the cars here, that's what I'm being confused about because we should see these cars coming to us. So let's try one thing super quick. Let's try to do an authenticated row. Who are we? We are Alex Iglesias at finsuite.com. So authenticated role. Let's mock, let's impersonate this. And yes, we should be getting two cars. Interesting. So let's try it again, just in case. So here, we no longer need to return the user data. We get all the cars, and then we respond with the cars. Let's deploy it again. All right, let's refresh this. Let's invoke hello world. And this is interesting because we're not getting these cars. Let me try something. This is coming empty. Hmm. Hmm. Mm-mm. Let's see 1 second, because I think that I'm missing something. We're doing Supabase auth, get user, the token, and we are sending the data. Are we writing the query correctly? Yes, we're getting the cars and we're selecting everything. So for some reason, this data is coming empty when it should come populated. And I want to make sure that we find out before moving on. So let's try one thing. Let's go to add functions. Let's remember that we can check the logs of a function. We can open this. We can go in the logs here. And now we can see exactly everything that it's being logged in. So if we refresh this, we open the invoke hello world and we call it, we should see now some logs here coming. And it's saying shut down. Interesting. If it's saying shut down, that might mean that let's try it again. Interestingly, we're not seeing any logs coming from here. So just to check something, let me do this. Foo equals to bar, because maybe we're not even reaching this line where we're sending this. So let's do this. Don't worry, this might be boring, but when debugging is when you really find out how things work. All right, let's refresh this. Let's try to call it again, and let's see if we're getting this data. We are. All right, that's a good sign. It means that these data, it is coming empty. It is coming empty. Okay, let me try something else. Let's go here. Let's get the cars. And when getting the cars, we are also doing row level security. So here, we are successfully getting the 2 cars, which means that something is going wrong when doing this. We are creating the client, we're getting the authorization, we're getting the user successfully. And Supabase automatically, when you get a user, it logs in the user. And then we're getting from the cars, because that's from the cars, right? We're getting from the cars and we're selecting everything. Not this one, this one. All right. Okay. So for some reason, Supabase is not providing these cars after authenticating us. Now, there's obviously something wrong here, but I'm not sure if it's wrong with the setup or if it's wrong with Supabase or with something else. So what I'm going to do is I'll try to figure out instead of having you guys waiting, and we are going to add the missing info in the comments after this live stream because I want to move on before instead of getting stuck here. All right. But just as a quick summary, what we're trying to do is we're trying to authenticate the user in the Supabase Edge function. And then after authenticating the user by getting the authorization token, we are getting the cars using the Supabase client, and that those cars are being sent to the browser. Now the problem is that for some reason, Supabase is not passing the authentication to the query when it clearly states in the documentation that it should be like this. So either, as I mentioned, I'm doing something wrong, or we should do something different. So yeah, I'll give you an update. But let's move on. Now, here, what happens if you wanted to do routing? Right? Let's imagine that in here, in your Supabase function, not only you wanted to have one single endpoint, doesn't matter what endpoint it is, but instead you want to have a full-blown API. You could have multiple routes with different methods and have just as much complex logic as you want. You can do that. And actually, Supabase has an example of it. If we go to, let me get that for you. 1 second. Here. If we go here, you're going to see that Supabase has this guide for handling routing in functions. So for example, let's imagine that we wanted to use Hano. I've used this in many other live streams to create applications. Hano is just a framework to get a request, handle the routing, execute the logic for the route that it should be targeting, and then returning a response. It's just a way of keeping things organized and expanding your project. So in this case, they use an example using Hano. Remember that you can import any package from npm or JSR, which is a different package repo. And in this case, you can create the endpoints. So in this case, instead of having one single endpoint, they would do this hello world like this. So if we just grab this like that and we paste it in our application, let's just come here. Let's get rid of all of this. Let's do boom, this like that. We don't need to install everything because this is Dino. And now here, instead of doing all of these, let's also do another one. And let's do get hello world / let's do, I don't know, West, whatever. In this case, we can also implement this routing in West. So let's quickly deploy this like this. This is now deployed. And in that case, our function is no longer running in the base. When we're calling this function, what's happening is that it's just calling it in the main route. So it would be something like this, the main route, right? And in this case, let's just say hello. Let's deploy this again. So when we do this, when we only call the function passing the function name, the endpoint that will be executed is the main route. It's this one. Huh? Let's try it out. Let's do this. Let's call this. And again, come on. Why are we getting server errors? Don't give me this. Don't make me this. Come on. Some days everything works as expected. Some days everything breaks right the moment that we're trying to demo it. We're doing this hello world. We're sending the data. All right. Server error, server error. We're getting some error here. We're getting an error. And that's probably, no, that's a get request. Yes. Oh, right, because probably we want to pass course. That's probably what's happening. Let's check it out. Yes, we are having course issues because I removed it. But in Hono, we've got course middleware baked in. So we can simply do this like this. Let's copy this. Let's come here. Let's import this from Hono course, which means that we're going to do this. We're going to copy course, and this will be Hono course like that. I think, pretty sure. And in that case, we're going to run the course middleware for all the endpoints like that. Let's just make sure, because JSR works a bit different. So let's go to JSR. Let's look for Hono just to make sure. And in that case, we should see add Hono. Let's look for Hono course. But I'm pretty sure that it should be like that. Hono. Hono. Yes. All right, let's deploy this. Deployed. Nice. And let's try this again. And now it is working. Great. So remember that this is one issue that we presented in the last live stream. And it's that because Wized runs on the browser, anytime that you are trying to invoke a function, that function should be handling course. Course it's just a measure to prevent unwanted origins from calling your endpoint. And in this case, what we want to do is just allow everyone to be calling this endpoint. And that's what's happening here. Hono, because it's a framework, a routing framework, has a baked-in middleware to inject the course headers into all the requests. So in this case, when we do the request for the main route, which is this hello route, what's happening is that it is injecting the course the course headers, and now we can call it from the browser. So let's try it again. And interestingly, we are getting a hello world. So let me do hello world like that. Because actually, we may be calling this endpoint, not this one. Interestingly. Let's try this again. Yes. All right. So when we are defining a function name, if you're using a routing framework like Hono, the first path that you're going to be executing, it's the function name, like that. So forget about what I said here. I was wrong. Now, if we want to go into deeper paths, into nested paths, all we need to do is simply pass like this. So instead of calling the main hello world in here, we can call hello world forward slash Wized. So let's try this. Let's run in. And now you can see how we are getting this hello Wized response. Nice. How about if we want to post, not only get, but actually post something? We can do that. Let's get rid of this by simply changing the HTTP method here. So in this case, now we're going to be sending the request to hello world, but with a post method, which means that we can also include somebody. In this case, this endpoint is expecting a name in the body. So let's do this. Let's add this key name and let's do some random name. Let's do Gabe, because we're never saying hi to Gabe. Let's do it now. If we run this, yeah. uh, Now we are getting these hello Gabe. All right. So that's how routing works in edge functions, exactly as any other environment. The only thing that if you want to get into nested paths, remember that you have to put it in the function name here in Wized, like this. Great. And now let's move into the last thing, which is cron. Last video, I said that Supabase does not support cron, but oh boy, I was wrong, because in Supabase released just a few months ago, so 4th of December 2024, 4 months ago, 4 months ago, released Supabase cron, which is cool because now with Supabase cron, what we can do is schedule any jobs to run in any moment. So imagine that for some reason you've got a function that does something. Maybe it updates your database with some information. Maybe it sends an email to people. Maybe it just checks if the user should be removed from the database because they have been inactive. Maybe, I don't know, like you can come up with all sorts of use cases. In the case of Dimitri's, his use case was just to keep the database running, because in Supabase, if you have a free project and if you don't interact with that project, I think that it's after 7 days, Supabase kills it. So it doesn't delete it, but it puts it to sleep. So the next time that you want to interact with it, maybe you want to query the database or run a function or do something else, you're gonna get an error because Supabase will say, "Hey, this project is not active." And what you have to do is manually go to the dashboard in Supabase and click on reactivate the project. So it's a pain in the ass. So here, if you go to supabase.com/modules/cron, you come here and you schedule your first job. What you're gonna get is here a selection for your project because it's going to install an integration, an extension to Supabase. So in this case, we're gonna select with Stream Supabase. And in my case, I already have this installed, but in your case, you might see a button here that says, "Hey, do you want to install this integration?" You just click on the button and it's going to run it. So once we've got this integration ready, all you have to do is go to the Jobs tab. And in this Jobs tab, you can start creating jobs. So let's create a job like that. And let's call this something like run hello world once a day because Demetrius doesn't want to pay. It even rhymes. Look at that. So what you do is you create a schedule for it. So schedules mean how often this will be running. Do you want it to run every 5 minutes, every minute, every 30 seconds, every 2 hours, every day? If you run it every day, what time do you want to run it? Do you want to run it once a day at 2 p.m.? Do you want to run it every Monday at 3:55 p.m. Like you can establish exactly the recurringness of this. So here we've got a few examples. Every 3 seconds, every minute, every 5 minutes, every first month of the month, every night at midnight, every Monday at 2 a.m. We could select, for example, every night at midnight. And that's all it's doing is just creating this syntax. If you want to see how it works, look at this. This chart is explaining minutes, hours, days of the month, days of the week. So in this case, we are running every night at midnight, which means that it is running at 12 p.m. So 12 a.m., sorry, at 0 minutes. And then here, because we're not specifying a specific day of the month or a specific month or a specific day of the week, it means that it will just run every day like that. So it is saying this cron will run at 12 a.m. Nice. So we've got the name, we've got the schedule. All we have to do now is select the type because we can run different types of cron jobs. It could be a SQL snippet in case that you want to directly update the database. That would be fine. You could also run a database function, which we have not talked about in this live stream. Maybe we can talk about it in the future. You can also do an HTTP request to some random other server. Maybe you have a different API. Maybe you want to send a ping to another service. Up to you. Or we can run a Supabase Edge function. Quick side note here. If you see that this option is disabled, that's probably because you're going to be required to install another extension. So you're probably going to see some message around here that says, hey, in order to do a Supabase Edge function, to call a Supabase Edge function, you have to install another extension. So you just click on install, that's it, and you can start using this. So let's do this. Let's do method get. The Edge function will be hello world. A timeout of 1 second, that's fine. And we don't need any headers. We don't need any body. We can create the cron job. Nice. So now we've got the cron job, and this is saying, hey, every day at 12 a.m., this will run, and the command will be this. We just call the function. Actually, let's change it to run every 5 seconds. Why not? Every 5 seconds. Like this. So we do this. Let's wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Look at this. And it should be running. Yeah. And it's probably now just running every 5 seconds. Nice. So that's it. I'm going to disable it because there's no point on doing this. But the main is now you know the answer. If you want to create a cron job, that's how you do it. All right. Okay, cool. I think that we are ready to move on because we have to talk about Supabase Storage. So let's do it. So let's go back to our Supabase dashboard. We've been exploring all these different tabs. The one that it's missing now, it's talking about storage. Storage, as the word says, it means storing stuff. So we can store all sorts of things, any kind of file. It can be an image, a PDF file, a Word document, an executable, whatever. You can just put whatever you want in here. And I think that the limits are pretty nice for the free tier. Let me check. How much can we store? We can store up to 1 GB. Look at this, for free. That's nice. And if you have a paid project, you can store up to 100 GB. It's not bad. Nice. So the way that it works is exactly as any other bucket service like AWS, like Firebase Storage, like a Cloudflare R2. All the services work exactly the same. We create buckets, we create folders, and we put the files. So let's do this. First of all, we need to create a bucket. because maybe for organization purposes, you want to have different buckets. Maybe you have a bucket only for storing user images. Maybe you've got a bucket only for storing your own PDFs that then you want to download from your website. I don't know. You can do whatever. So let's create a new bucket. Let's call this bucket cuts like this. For now, let's make this bucket public because we want to make it simple just for demo purposes, but we also going to talk about role level security. And then we could also add some additional configuration if you wanted, like, do you want to restrict the size of the files that we are uploading? Maybe. Do we want to restrict the types of files that are being uploaded? So to define the types, you have to use mem types. You can just Google that, but essentially they represent the type of file. So you can see a few examples here like JPEGs, PNGs, audios, MPG, or MP4 videos. You can define exactly what you are allowing um, for people to upload. So let's save this like that. And now that we've got a cat bucket, how about we just drop a file? So let's do this. I already have one cat image ready here. So let's just drop this cat in here. Nice. Like this. Look at this. And what we want to do is just check it out. So what we can do is go to Wized. Let's refresh this for a second and let's create a request. And that request will be called get file URL like this. So let's select Supabase. Let's select the method and this method will be get file URL like that. And when doing this, essentially what we're doing is just generating a URL that we can use, for example, to display an image. So in this case, we first need the bucket name. So it's going to be cats, the storage path, and that goes, it's going to be a string. And if you have it under folders, you will have to type first the folder name, / and then the file name. Or if you have more folders, another folder, and another folder up to the point where you reach the file name. In this case, we don't have folders yet, so let's just call the file name, which in this case, it is cat1.jpg. So let's do this, cat1.jpg. Nope, JPEG. Done. And let's just run this for a second. And we are getting this URL, this public URL. So let's try just opening these on the side. Nice. Like this. Look at this cat. How beautiful this cat is. So what we want to do is, let's imagine we want to display this image on the website. Let's try it out. Let's go to Webflow and let's just add another image here. Let's do image. Why not? And this image is going to have a Wized attribute and we can call this cat image like this. Nice. So if we refresh this, we're going to see this image somewhere in here. Yep. And all we want to do now is just say, hey, I want to change the HTML attribute source to be the public file that we're getting. So r.getFileURL.data like this. So if we go back to the get file URL, where is it? Here. And we run this, it's actually not data, my bad. It's data public URL. Okay, so let's go back here. It is data dot public URL like this. So look at this. What's happening is that automatically Wized, when it detects that we have pulled this public URL, it is just assigning that source to the cat. So let's just try it again. Let's refresh this. Let's go to the request and manually execute it just for the sake of, where is it? Here. Let's manually execute it. And you can see that the moment that we are getting this URL, Wized automatically injects that source. Great. The image is asking, Webflow Wized question. I'm thinking for the CRM to create a reusable pop-up that I will have for all the pop-ups. Is this possible only with one Wized attribute? Do you believe? It is. Yes, why not? So I'm assuming that you want to change the content of that pop-up. Is that what it is, Demetrius? So each you would reuse the pop-up system, but you would change the contents of it depending on whatever you're trying to transmit. Is that the question? I'm gonna assume yes, but okay, yes, like slots. We've got one option now, and you're gonna have an additional option soon. So the current option that you could use is simply just have one pop-up, and in that pop-up, okay, another question is the content, even though the content will change, is the structure gonna change? Like, are you always going to have in the pop-up like a message and a button and a close button as well? Or can the contents of the pop-up dramatically change um depending on what you're trying to do with the pop-up? If you need your time to write this, I can move on with the live stream and then I can answer you. Let's see. The contents might change. I guess that could be grouped with relevant designs. All right. One of the things that you can do is, um, for example, you can create those pop-ups in Webflow, but all those pop-ups can have the same attribute. Yeah, I'm just doing like a side quest right now with Dimitris, and then we can finalize this storage thing. So imagine that I'm going to assume that this is one pop-up. Let's call this one. And I'm going to assume that this is two pop-up like this, right? You can call each pop-up the same attribute. This could be with, let's call this pop-up like that, and also with pop-up. But additionally, you can add some attribute to it. Let's say, for example, data pop-up. This is going to be first. And let's call this data pop-up second. So you could potentially set up the visibility of this pop-up based on the attribute, obviously, of Wized, but also the attribute of this data pop-up. So in here, like that, I can define these. Let's create a quick variable. Let's do pop-up. Why not? And this value can either be null, or it could be first, or it could be second, right? So in here, we could define for both pop-ups, we could define visibility, return, and then first of all, we want to get the pop-up data attribute. So we could do let's call it ID. We could do t dot node dot dataset dot pop-up, or you could also do get attribute. It's the same thing. I just like using data sets. And then we could say, hey, return v.popup equals to the ID, like that, right? So now you can see how both are hidden. But if I come here and I update this variable to be first, you're going to see how now the first one is being displayed. Or if I do second, now you can see how second it is displayed like that. Of course, the pop-up which has lots would always be the same, but maybe you can get the tails attribute. Yes, absolutely. You can get the tails attributes as well. So instead of instead of doing T-node dataset, you could do T-node query selector like that, and you just look for the element, and you get the attribute from that specific element. Does that make sense, Dimitris? All right, side quest finished. Let's move on. Let's continue doing things. So, uploading files from Wized to Supabase. All we need to do is just create another request. And that request, let's call this upload file like that. And in this case, let's do Supabase. Let's look for upload a file like this. And when we're trying to do an uploading file, we're going to get asked for the bucket name again, where do we want to store this file? And then the file itself. So as we've done in previous live streams, let's quickly create let's just do it in here. Let's quickly create a file upload. So let's get rid of this, get rid of this, get rid of this. Let's do upload a cut. And let's create a custom element. Usually you would do a file upload file, but you need a paid subscription so you need your project to have a paid plan to be able to use file uploads, which is a pain in the ass, as you can see. So let's just use a custom element. And this custom element, it will be an input with a type of file. So let's do type file. Let's add a name to it as well. Let's do name upload cat. Why not? Cat. And let's add an attribute to it called, actually, no, let's add the attribute to the form. So let's grab the form, and this form will have something like Wized upload cat form. Boom. So let's publish this like that. And now, if we refresh Wized, we're going to see this. We're going to see as well that we've got this upload cat form. So when we submit this form, we are going to retrieve this file that from the input and sending it over to Supabase. So let's try it out. So first of all, bucket name, cats, storage path. Let's be actually play around, and let's do get session data session user ID. So what I'm doing is I am going to upload the cat under a folder that has my ID, because maybe in this cool web application that I'm building, I want every user to be able to upload his own images of cats to his own folder and to read those images later, so he can download those images afterwards. So let's do this. The folder is going to be my user ID, which you can see in here, because when the page loads, we are getting the session and we're getting the user. And that's going to be like that, /, and we're going to do f.uploadCatForm.uploadCat dot name, I think, because when we upload this cat here, we are going to get the name of the file, and that's what we're sending there. So let's try it. First of all, we need that when we submit this form. So let's add an event here on submit. Let's prevent default. Let's reset the form. Why not? And let's add an action. And that action will be perform a request. Upload a file like that. Probably we will like to call this upload a cat image. Well, so let's try it out. So let's choose the file cat1. And when we submit, let's go back again to the upload upload file. Oh, hold on. We need to pass the file. So let's do this. F dot upload cat form upload cat like this. So in the file um, field setting, you need to pass the file input that we are using. In this case, I'm using a form. So I'm selecting the form, the name of the form, and the name of the input, because the inputs here are, this input is called upload cat like this. So now we've got it ready. Nice. Let's refresh just in case. Cat1. Let's open the request execution so we can check it. Let's submit this. And now it's saying new row violates row level security policy. Ooh, what is happening here? Let's go back to buckets. This is a public bucket, which means that everyone can read. But I don't think we have a policy to actually write. So in this case, we need to define a policy that allows us to write to the folders. So let's create a policy. Let's just start from a template. And let's do, for example, give users access to a folder only to authenticated users. Give users access to only their own top level folder named as UID. Okay, I like this one. Allow access to JPEG images in a public folder to anonymous users. Let's do this one because actually it's what I was trying to do. So I want to have my own folder that it is named as my user ID. So let's use this template and let's just allow everything like that. So we can get files, add files, update files, and delete files from it. Like that. And yeah, and to all the rows. Okay. All right. Let's try it again. I'm actually not sure if. Okay. So file must be a file. Yes, because I have to do it again. Let's do it. Submit. And that's it. Yay. All right. So look at that. What happened is that we successfully sent the file to the folder that it's named after my user ID. You can check that this ID here matches my user ID here. And inside this folder, we are hold on, undefined. We did something wrong. Hold on. What happened here? Form. That should be the name. Did I do it wrong? F upload cat form upload cat dot name. Let me try one thing quick. Let's not reset the form. And let's do this. Let's send it again. All right. 1 second. Now that we've got this, let's do what we're doing. Undefined. Huh. Interesting. Cat1 undefined. So it's not name. What is it? Oh, because it's a file list. Hold on. Yes, because we could potentially be uploading multiple files. My bad. That's a problem. So we need to access the first file, and then we can do the name. So if we do it now we're talking. Look at this. So we need to access the file input from F, upload cat form, upload cat. And then because we are getting the file name from it, we want to access the specific file that has it. In this case, it's the first one because there's only one file. So we access the first one and then we get the name property, and now we are talking. So now I can submit this. Let's go back to the buckets. And now this has been successfully uploaded like that. Nice. So as you can see, Wized and Supabase automatically handle the authentication for you. You have seen that we've defined these policies that say, hey, only people who are logged in can upload files in their own folder. So if we did it right and we actually try to change this to something different, like Dimitri says folder, like that. And if we tried to run this, now you can see how we are getting a row level security policy warning, because this is saying, hey, you can actually not upload in this folder because the policies in Supabase state very clearly that you can only upload to a folder that it's called as your own user ID, like that. So I really encourage everyone, when you're when you're setting up Supabase with storage, that you define exactly who you want to give access to. You can decide who can read from it, who can edit, who can upload, who can delete files, etc. So keep that in mind, because it is important. So let's just undo this. Let's go back, back, back. Okay, like that. Nice. Great. And then last bit is that in Supabase, there's also the option of downloading the file. We've seen how to get a file URL when it's public, which is happening here. If we call this, we are getting the file URL, and this file URL contains the cat, right? And this can be opened. I can open this link, and because it is public, I can open this. But maybe you've got some PDF stored, or maybe you've got something that only the user should be able to download. And I'm talking specifically about downloading. So clicking on a button and that file goes to his own device. In that case, that's an update that's coming either today or next Monday. You're going to see that there's an additional request here when you select from Supabase that it's called download a file. And essentially, that request will work exactly as the get file URL does. So you're going to be prompted for from a bucket name, a storage path, and then when hitting that, the file will be downloaded directly. Hopefully, this makes sense. Which means that you can also implement policies. For example, only the authenticated user can download from this bucket, like that. And that, my friends, says marks the ending of this live stream series. I think that we've covered pretty much everything from Supabase. There's a real time that we could potentially explore, but Wist already has real time baked in when it comes to reading from a list. So that's already there. We've talked about database, authentication, storage, edge functions, basically all of it. So after all this talking, after all these explaining the functionalities, I think that it's time now to start building something. So, from next Friday, the next live streams are going to be about doing a live build of something. That live build will not have as many explanations because I will try to get more to the point. And if at some point somebody has a question, I'm just going to say, hey, just go to part 3 of the live stream and check that. Because then I can just move on, try to build something. People can see me, watch me building something and solving problems. And we can optimize how we spend the time without giving a lot of explanations, because you can always come back to these live streams. And I see that Nelson is loving this. Great. What did we say about live build? I don't know what did we say, but I can. Oh, that you missed it. Next Friday, one project live build. It might take a few live streams. I don't know, but it's gonna be Wist and Supabase, and we're gonna build a real live project, something that we can test after the live streams have been concluded. So ideas are welcome. If you have something in mind, I don't know right now. I'm pretty clueless of what we're gonna build, but let me know. Tag me on Twitter. Put a comment in here. Just say what would be cool to build, and we're gonna do this. Of course, we should do it multi-page, right? Yes, it is gonna be multi-page. It's gonna have authentication, database, storage, add functions. We're gonna try to do a pretty complex project. So stay with me. See you next Friday. We're going to build something cool. Thank you, everyone.